so let's talk about something that's really blowing up on social media over the last couple of weeks. Protest in the main square. People are changing their Facebook profile picture, so it must be a big, big deal, right? I'm talking about the Polish government's plan, I guess you can call it, to allow a kind of intensified hunting season on boars. On boars in Poland. They've approved the culling of 200 or 210,000 boars over the next 3 weekends, starting with the weekend right now when we're recording this, 3 weekends in January. 210,000 boars, which is roughly 90% of the estimated population of all the boars in Poland. And they say this is a necessary step to combat a rise in something called African swine flu, or ASF, as they call it. Now, before we get into the many, many angles of this, let's kind of establish the, let's call it the scientific case for why the government says this is necessary. Josh, tell us about African swine flu and why it's so dangerous.
Well, African swine flu is highly contagious amongst pig species and invariably fatal. So if there's an outbreak of African swine flu, all the pigs that get it die. It doesn't transmit to humans, so in that sense it's not an immediate threat, but obviously people whose livelihood depends on breeding pigs, this is a big problem. Now, one of the issues that has to be dealt with when you have a situation like this is how to mitigate the spread of the disease, and normally with these kind of things, you would try and, rather than just eliminate the entire population, which is generally seen as being excessive, you would try and target what are called the vectors, the areas, the channels through which there is the greatest risk of infection. Now, this is difficult here because, firstly, it's highly contagious, it's airborne, so it's very easily passed from one pig or boar to another. The other is that boar are wild and have no respect for boundaries and have considerable ability in getting through boundaries. So it's just not really feasible to kind of go for a 10% reduction. You've really got to go. And in fact, to even add to that, it's highly unlikely that they'll be successful in killing the numbers that are wanted, because it's difficult.
Now, the opponents of this plan, and there are many, many opponents, we'll get to that in a few minutes, they say that in fact this hunt is or can be counterproductive for a couple of reasons. They say that first of all, hunting the boars, let's call them boars. Hunting the boars will make them kind of run and spread out into areas they otherwise would not go to, which kind of unintentionally kind of spreads the reach of the African swine flu. They say that killing them, puts blood on the ground, and that blood can somehow, I don't understand the science of it all, but the blood on the ground can also aid the spread of African swine flu. Valid points, or what do you think? Dr. Mike.
These points they're bringing up, like you mentioned, they are valid to a certain extent, but it's kind of like a balancing act, like many things. Yes, hunters that go into the forest can actually pick up the viral material on their shoes or whatever, and then walk around into towns where farmers are also walking, who go back to their pig farms and then spread the disease, So in that sense, yeah, there is a likelihood that some infection might spread. But you're also getting rid of a huge number of animals that are the vectors. So at this moment, you increase the chances, but then for several months or maybe years, depending on how successful this hunt is, you're decreasing the chance that somebody will spread the infection. Though I have heard talk that the viral material can actually survive for quite a long time in the ground. I don't know how true this is, because I always understood that viruses break down quite quickly, but for several years. So even if they kill off the boars in that area, they have to keep the boars away for several years, unless they'll come back, just get reinfected, and then start spreading the disease as well.
Well, that seems to be the response to the points that I just raised about making the pigs run to other areas and blood on the ground. The response to that seems to be that, okay, that may or may not be true to some small degree, but the most important thing in this issue is to dramatically reduce the total number of pigs out there. That's more important than anything else. And the only way to do that is with the barrel of a gun. Dave?
I have to say, I was just totally shocked there's so many wild pigs running around Central Europe. What the hell's going on? I mean,
there are tons.
I've been reading about wild boars all week with increasing alarm. It seems they're invading half the world. So, I mean, tell me this. Why, how come a pig breeds like a rabbit? What's going on here? Why is there so many of them?
That seems to be part of the problem. I mean, the boar is this weird combination of different different kind of characteristics of the animal world. They reproduce like prey animals, almost like rabbits. I think a female boar, a sow, can make 10 babies a year. So they reproduce like prey animals, but at the same time, they are hard as nails. Boars are tough. But, after the nuclear winter that's coming, boars and cockroaches will still be around. The boars are just indestructible, right? And this is something that I'm getting
So
into.
what you're telling me is their natural predators don't exist anymore. So,
well, they do
so we have to shoot them regularly. I mean, we have culls every year, right?
Well, there are regular culls, of course, because there have to be the natural.
And it's not small numbers. Like last year it was 100.
Wait, the natural limitations on their growth, and basically in the form of predators, they're mostly gone. Most predators in Europe were hunted to extinction or near extinction a long time ago, and things like wolves and whatnot. And of course, there are a handful of wolves in Poland now, but nothing like there were centuries ago. And so the natural break on their population growth is gone. It's basically up to humans now to limit their population growth because, again, they're so tough, they breed very quickly, and their predators are basically non-existent, right? And you were talking about numbers a minute ago, and I was looking. Just like you were, I was reading up on this. People are getting upset over potentially 210,000 boars in Poland being killed. You know how many Germany killed a couple of years ago?
How many, John?
Like 800 and something thousand. 800 and almost a million.
I have to say, it's all been news to me. I'm not really a big Animal Kingdom person. My documentaries don't tend to be, narrated by David Attenborough.
I didn't know much about boars to this week either, but the more I learn, the more it's a serious problem.
Should we not get McDonald's involved in this? I can see a commercial kind of.
Well, there's a question, right? Where does that? You see wild boar on the menu all the time in restaurants up in the
quite expensive generally as well.
Yeah, where does that come from?
But if there are so many boars out there, why is it expensive?
Yeah.
Can I ask my question? Does that come from the annual cull?
Well, I guess it does now. I mean, it's perfectly safe to eat the meat, but I think in the past it was just, regularly hunted.
But in a restaurant, wouldn't the meat have to come from a proper supplier with, checked sources and whatnot?
No, any meat that's sold has to go through the proper authorities, has to be checked and screened.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know. I think
so where does the wild boar on our menus come from? Is it imported?
Maybe it's not wild.
I'm pretty sure that the bulk of it is from the culling. I mean, anytime you shoot an animal here, if you want to eat it, you have to actually go to the state vet, and he certifies that there are no parasites in here, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, lots of government oversight when it comes to what ends up on your plate.
Was there also quite a serious miscommunication about the pregnant sows being shot? The government's now denied that they ever said this to the hunting
that's
groups.
one of the big aspects of this.
Seems to be a bit
that's what people are claiming to be upset
here.
about. What about the pregnant sows, right? What about those? Can we shoot those? Should we shoot those? And there seems to be either a miscommunication or maybe the government wasn't clear on this about, what should hunters do with pregnant sows? Should they shoot them or not? Dr. Mike, what do you think about
apparently
this?
The initial announcement that the government made didn't clarify. It just basically said, shoot all of them. We need to limit their numbers. And it also said shoot sows or the females. It didn't say don't shoot pregnant ones or ones that have young around them or anything like that. And a lot of people automatically just interpreted that, yes, in that case, shoot the pregnant ones and shoot the ones with little babies running around them because they're so cute and fuzzy.
Yeah, sorry, because this point in time is chosen because it's the rutting season, right?
Right.
So that informs me that
they're making little baby boars.
Rutting is a great word, Josh.
It is, isn't it? That informs me that there are going to be vast numbers of freshly pregnant sows. They're not going to be bulging, are they? I mean, they don't,
I guess.
gestate that kind of quickly. So, I mean, how we're getting into slightly potentially indelicate areas, but I mean, you could see a kind of a perfectly healthy looking, active boar, and it might, be containing inside it
it's a fair point. How is the hunter supposed to know?
I felt lost in this story because I'm not an animal person. I felt lost where I should stand on this. The first report I read, I thought that sounds a bit extreme.
I mean, how pregnant counts as pregnant? I know this is a universal
especially
question.
when you're shooting from I don't know how many meters away, are you supposed to take the time and effort to carefully examine the pit
Urine test
right before it either runs away or charges you? I don't know how you're supposed to figure that out. All right, so let's call that the factual side of things. The government says there's a real serious threat. Oh, and by the way, the pork industry, huge in Poland, by the way, huge. There are, at any given time, interesting fact, about 11 million pigs in Poland. 11 million.
Wow.
Right, so people not getting upset about the potential threat to that population, but crying and hysterical. I just betrayed my position on this whole thing. But crying and hysterical over 200,000 wild boars being killed, but nobody getting upset over 11 million pigs being kind of
probably some of those people are also
poisoned to
equally
death.
upset about.
Yeah,
But But we haven't mentioned yet. But also, this is European Union policy. This control of the wild boar population. I mean, there is a European Union Commission that is in charge of diseases amongst livestock.
It's not like Poland is some rogue state going their own way, doing
this is
something.
Absolutely sanctioned.
Every European country does this, and in fact, just a couple of days ago, is it the European Commission? I forgot what organ of the EU, but I think it was the European Commission expressed their kind of approval and support. To the extent they support this kind of thing, to say yes, this is okay. This is done in accordance with European law. It's consistent with European law regarding this kind of thing. So it's not like Poland is some outlier doing something that nobody else does. This is how it works. But people are getting really upset about it. Let's kind of transition to the social political side of this. Why is this such a big deal? People changing their Facebook profile, and protest in the Rinnick a couple of days ago was don't shoot the pigs. And why are people getting so upset about what should be just a necessary a move to preserve the agricultural industry in the country?
I don't know. I think these people just have never encountered boars in real life. I was speaking with my wife about this the other night, and she basically said, people don't understand. These are ferocious, terrible animals to encounter if you're in the forest. Like, she used to, on her way back from work late night, where she lived outside of Krakow, she wasn't worried about muggers. She wasn't worried about wolves or anything like that, or rapists. She was worried about boars, because you didn't hear them coming, and they would just charge you. And I think a lot of people just they see those nice little pictures of the, whatever you call their piglets on Facebook. They fall in love with them, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, these have got serious teeth. I mean, tusks. I mean, it'll gore you.
Didn't you guys have an issue with this in England? Back in the Forest of Dean, I was reading something.
Yeah. I mean, and this, like the wild boar was extinct in Great Britain for, since the 14th century, I think. And then there was some, I don't know, like artisanal kind of farmer kind of introduced, some wild boar purely for farming purposes for sailors' meat, and then the inevitable happened, and some escaped, and then a year or two later there was 100 or so in the wild, and then a year after that there was 1,600 or so. I don't know. I forget the exact numbers.
They reproduce exponentially when there's no curb on their rate of reproduction.
Jeez, I don't think we have any in Ireland. You'd be afraid to go for a walk with the dog.
I think I read that Ireland they're long extinct in Ireland.
Good. Sorry, pigs.
You're not allowed to take them on Aer Lingus, I think.
Yeah, I'll protest for your rights, but only in Poland.
Mike, you mentioned the Facebook picture thing, and I want to be careful here, because I really disagree with these people, but at the same time, I want to choose my words carefully, because the people that are the people that would disagree with me on this, a lot of them, their heart is in the right place. They want to do the right thing. They're not trying to piss me off, I guess, but they are.
But they're succeeding.
But they're succeeding. So I don't want to be too savage, but when you change your Facebook picture to these cute little pigs, and that's not the issue here. And as Josh said, I think they're cute for about 3 weeks before they turn into this 90-kilogram beast with this gnarly face and tusks, and they are really aggressive. These are feral animals. They're just super destructive in the countryside, and I think a lot of the opposition to this move is just from people who live in cities, who work in nice air-conditioned offices, and really have never had a face-to-face encounter with a boar in the forest, and would probably shit themselves if they ever did and start running.
Yeah, like if a boar somehow made it into the office parking lot, they'd lock the doors and not go outside for the whole night. I mean,
yeah, exactly. These are not cute animals, and they are very destructive to agriculture.
Were you saying that they're in Madrid or something, in the city limits, and people are shooting them with bows and arrows?
There was. We were talking about this before we started recording, but in my research for this, I learned that this is like 2 years ago in Madrid, the city of Madrid, there were something like 2,500, 3,000 boars living in the suburbs of the city, where the city starts to kind of, slowly transform into the countryside. 3,000 boars in the city. And the city government there approved this I guess, a team of people that hunted them with bows and arrows, because, you can't fire off a gun in the city limits.
The advanced tapas unit. It's called.
And so
salsa picante.
So
pork on a
can you imagine that you see a guy walking down the street in suburban Madrid with a bow and arrow hunting goddamn boars? Again, as we said,
pretty awesome.
Germany killed almost 1 million. Denmark, a very big pork industry in Denmark, by the way. Denmark put up some kind of physical barrier
Build a wall.
They built a wall. They made the boars pay for it.
My only encounter with nature is through the wonderful work of Bear Grylls. You know, it makes me feel like an outdoorsman to watch him on my big screen TV.
Makes you feel tough.
Yeah, and one of the episodes he goes into the Everglades, was just crawling with all sorts of invasive species, of which the wild boar is by far the most aggressive and problematic. They attempt to cull in the Everglades, but they can't pay enough hunters to go in there and risk their lives.
Yeah, this is not the cute, cuddly little piglets we see in the Facebook profile pics. And
I recommend this
big,
episode.
nasty animals.
I recommend this episode highly because of the nature of the animal. For once, Bear gets to do battle with nature. And he stabs this wild boar to death in quite dramatic fashion.
Stabs the boar to death.
He slits its throat in a dramatic wrestling match in a clearing in the Everglades. It's awesome. We promised with Josh we wouldn't swear in this episode. There's a chance his mother might be listening. Hello, Mrs. Stapleton.
Let's wind this down, but first we have to address the political side of this, because I think in today's world everything is political, especially if an issue can be used to make one or the other party look bad. Mike, there definitely is a political element to this, don't you think?
No doubt about it. I mean, this has been going on for years. This culling is nothing new. It's not dramatically more than in other countries or previous incarnations. But for some reason, the media really picked up on it. The wording was wrong. They kind of, in the announcement, they used that as an excuse to start saying that Peace is playing these horrible things, that it's ineffective, that they're inept. Look at the poor little piglets on Facebook, and they just rout up the public.
They killed 308,000 last year. So, you know.
Exactly. I've got a good example of this, how everything's politicized. I got an email from Gazeta Wyborcza, the newspaper.
An impartial and neutral
wait
source.
a second. 'Cause a few years ago, I used to subscribe to their online version, and I resigned. But for some reason, like a bad STD, sexual disease, I still get their emails. I can't seem to get rid of it. Anyway,
speaking from personal experience,
the email, it says that the title is protest. It's the imperative. It's telling me to do this. It says protest against the massacre of boars. How can you do it? And it gives me links to different organizations that I can contact to show my support for the opposition to this boar call. Now this is Gazeta Wyborcza. This is the biggest in terms of circulation, the biggest newspaper in the country, and they're being they're activists on this issue. Are they supposed to be reporting the news? But no, they're taking a side and they're promoting their side. So does it get any more partisan than this? I mean, come on.
I think I'd like to also mention, everybody can interpret this as
Oh, and by the way, sorry, Mike, I didn't finish my point. Sorry, just to be clear, Gazeta Wyborcza hates the current government. If you didn't know, Gazeta Wyborcza is, left of center, the current government is right of center, so Gazeta Wyborcza is using the boar issue like a hammer to try to beat on the government. Sorry, I should have added that before I interrupted
They're
you,
like
Mike.
the New York Times of Poland, basically.
New York Times.
Pravda. Yeah.
Oh, and I just want to add one more thing that I could have mentioned at the beginning of this whole discussion. Because when John was talking about the predators and there aren't too many wolves in Poland,
right.
People have talked about, well, maybe we should introduce even more wolves. But think of the perspective here of a wolf. It's running around in the forest, and you can either go after a ferocious a boar, which can actually kill it.
A pack of boars. Yeah.
Exactly. Or it can jump over a fence and go after some chickens or sheep or lamb or goats.
Pretty easy decision.
They're well known for doing kids' stories. I've seen that happen in many cartoons.
My grandmother used to read me stories like that as well, many years ago.
So, people running around in the forests, they would not only be scared of boars, but also of wolves. So, yeah.
So, don't reintroduce wild wolves, is what we're saying here, I think, on top of everything else. That's been a bit of a disaster in other countries, I think.
The classic is in Australia, I think, isn't it? The cane toad, which was kind of a non-native species that was introduced because it was thought that the cane toad was a voracious eater of some particular kind of weevil or grub, I think, that was attacking corn crops and everything. So, introduced this creature which kind of reproduces at an absolutely phenomenal rate, and actually, given a variety of food items, will choose not to eat the creature that it was imported to control. So they continued unabated, and cane toads are now an absolute menace in Australia.
So good intentions gone wrong, basically.
Once again, yes.
Yeah, that's kind of how I would describe this if I had to put my opinion on in a nutshell with the boars. It's good intentions. People want the right thing. They don't want a slaughter of nice animals, but it is necessary to preserve something much more important, which is part of our food source. And I think there's a big urban-rural divide here. There's a lot of politics going on. It's messy, but that's where I stand, Dave.
We need the wisdom of Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. Nature always finds a way.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that's a huge pile of shit.
What a movie. You don't crank them out like that anymore, Senor Spielbergo.
Thanks for listening, guys. See you next time on the KrakCast.